Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we are going to discuss the 1904 sequel book, The Marvelous Land of Oz. This is written by L. Frank Baum, illustrated by John R. Neal. So, Winslow did the first illustration for the first book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. John R. Neal does then the next 13 sequels of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, because there's 14 L. Frank Baum Oz books. So, this is so much better than the first. I absolutely love this book compared to the first. We start off in the northern country of Gillikin. It is all purple there. Munchkin is blue. Quadling in the south is red. And Winky is yellow. Emerald City is in the middle. It's green. We start out with our boy Tip. And Tip is owned, essentially, by this old witch named Mombi. And she's a sorceress of sorts. And as the story progresses, Tip makes this Pumpkinhead man. He's literally called Jack Pumpkinhead, and he's made out of wood with Pumpkinhead. Tip has takes some powder of life from Moby's stash and sprinkles it on Jack. He becomes alive. He then makes a sawhorse. They then find a sawhorse after running away from Moby. Sprinkle the powder of life on the sawhorse. Sawhorse comes alive. So it's the three of them now going to the Emerald City to talk to the Scarecrow to see if they can help, make sure that the witch doesn't attack them, basically. They get to the Emerald City. Scarecrow is still in charge of the Emerald City. He's wearing the crown. And then the Emerald City is now being attacked by General Jinjar. So she is leading a girls' revolt, which is very impressive for a book from 1904 for women's rights, basically. Very, very feministic book for this. So General Jinjar invades the Scarecrow. When we meet Julia Jam for the first time in this book, I love this book. They all escape, go to the Winky country to see if the Tin Woman can help. And they refer to him as Nick Chopper a lot in this book, that's his name. And he's referred a little bit in the first book. But this book, he's referred to Nick Chopper a lot. Then in their travels, they're trying to get to, where are they trying to go? They're trying to go back. Yeah, so they go back to, like face off against General Jinder and the Girls' Revolt. But like on their way, they meet this highly magnified Wogglebug, who is thoroughly educated. So H.M. Wogglebug T.E. Love Wogglebug. He's hysterical. He's so punny. It's great. More stuff happens, right? More battles happen, and then they all create this thing, as it's referenced, with a gump head, who's like a elk, basically, on two sofas, and they attached a bunch of clothesline together to keep it together. Take 4 giant palm fronds as wings and a broom as a tail. Sprinkle some powder of life. Powder of life is done. But there's 3 magic wishing pills at the bottom of the tin. So they then attempt to fly south to Quadling to ask Glinda for help. They inadvertently fly past Quadling, past the desert, into land past the southern part of the Land of Oz. And then they fight some jackdaws, which are these like crow things. The Scarecrow loses all his stuffing, so then they stuff him with money, paper money, from the jackdaw nest. They then fly back to Oz, but they wind up in Munchkin Land, and then they go back to the south, get Glinda's help, go to the Emerald City, face off against General Jinjar, who's now being helped by Mombi, and then they go back to, Quadling, basically, afterwards. It's turned out that Tip is not actually Tip, but Tip is actually Ozma. Tip is a boy with brown skin. He's not drawn with brown skin, but it's literally referenced that Glinda takes her white hand and grabs Tip's brown hand. And I'm like, wait a minute, where have I been? I don't have any knowledge of this. So Ozma is actually Tip. Ozma was changed into a boy magically by Mombi, so that way she could be hidden. That way the wizard could take the throne of the Emerald City away from Ozma's father, Pastoria. Ozma then is returned back to female form with her beautiful brown skin. Not drawn, but it's referenced, and I love that, because I didn't catch that the first 2 times I read this book. And then it's a matter of where her new friend's going to go. So Tin Woman and Scarecrow vow they're never going to leave each other's side again. Incredible. Again, I didn't catch that at first either. So they go back to Winky Country. Wogglebug and Jack and the Sawhorse stay in Emerald City with Ozma, who used to be Tip. And all is well with Oz. Now, this is interesting. This was 4 years after the first book. L. Frank Baum completely retconned his stories, because the first book says that the wizard came to Oz and he made the Ozites create the Emerald City. That he was the first ruler because he created the Emerald City, and he's been there since he was a young man, decades. In this book, it's revealed that Pastoria was the rightful king of Oz. The wizard took the throne from Pastoria, convinced Mombi to hide Ozma away as a baby, transformed her into Tip, this boy, who was then living with Mombi all this time, being harassed horribly. But the Scarecrow then got the throne from the wizard after the wizard left in his balloon back to Omaha, and then General Jinjar took the throne from the Scarecrow after she invaded. So Ozma is the rightful heir to the throne, technically, because Pastoria was the rightful ruler before the wizard took it from Pastoria. This is not a thing in the first book. That's why I like this book so much more than the first, because it's completely changed. He changes his own story. It's very interesting. Not many authors change their own story from sequel to sequel, but L. Frank Baum changes his stories from sequel to sequel, and we'll pick that up as moving forward. One of the books, it's referenced that there's no money used in Oz, but there's clearly money used in Oz. Like, he changes his stories, which is very interesting, and I don't know any other author that does that, but it kind of like makes sense as he changes it sometimes. The history of this, changing it back to Pastoria was the rightful king, and Ozma is the rightful heir to the throne, therefore making Ozma the rightful ruler of Oz afterwards. Very smart, because then it leads to sequels. Ozma and Dorothy become friends later on. Ozma gets back to Oz later on. So it's very smart to tweak it, because this is a real land. It's not a dream sequence like that very first movie. Not the first movie, but the 1939 movie musical, The Wizard of Oz, shows Oz as a dreamland, not an actual land. So it's very smart, changing it very quick. I just love the eclectic group of characters. They call themselves a party all the time. You got Tip walking around with them. Tip back when he was Tip. Back when they were Tip. Sawhorse, Jack Pumpkinhead, Scarecrow, Tin Woodman, aka Nick Chopper, H.M. Wogglebug, T.E., the Gump. Like, the 7 of them together on their whirlwind adventure, incredible. Absolutely loved it. The dialogue that all of them have is very specific to their own character. That's another thing. Sometimes you can see, like, the author's voice is just through the characters, but these characters have their own distinctive voice, which is cool. I also love the Wogglebug because he's very much like you should know these facts. Like, he'll say something and it'll start off with, like, as everyone knows, or like, those that are thoroughly educated will know that. Things like that. And it's like, oh wow, like, why didn't I know that history before? Obviously, this land doesn't exist in real life, but in the books they exist in real life. So it's cool having that, hey, I should know these things about this history, and the history changed completely from the first book. So this is far superior than the first book. Absolutely love this book. And it's talked about a long time ago, so it's neat having many years pass from when Dorothy left Oz and their whirlwind adventure. No lion in this book, which is interesting, but the lion gets a friend called the Hungry Tiger later on, which is pretty cool. But love this party of characters, love their development, love that the history changes, love this book. Mucho mahalo.